Hi, I'm Stephan Bonnar alongside Nick Blomgren and Matthew Holt, welcoming you to the final round. There's a big fight night this weekend, actually Sunday morning because of the time difference in Sweden. And we're going to talk about how to make money on those fights, who we're picking and why, where the value's at. But first, a lot of news going around in the MMA world, man. What's up, Matt?
I know it's been a crazy week for us. And look, we hate it when the UFC has these cancellations of big fights because that means we have to give refunds and switch around the system.
Pain in the butt for you.
Yeah, it is. So they canceled TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt. Obviously, the stem cell therapy in Germany didn't work out for Cody, and that fight's now officially canceled. But we got a new main event of UFC 213, Robert Whittaker against Yoel Romero for the interim middleweight title. With GSP and Michael Bisping now off. So I think that's actually a great fight. Both of them coming off huge KO wins. I think that's actually, I don't know if it quite replaces TJ Cody, but it's a really good main event.
Oh, I like that fight.
Why would you call it an interim title when, you got to fight the champ anyway? So I don't quite understand why they put a belt
Fool's
to it.
gold.
Yeah, fool's gold. Just get you a temporary belt,
Yeah, a phony belt.
A phony.
You're not the real champ.
Mandatory number one
Yeah,
contender.
let's do a contender's belt and have it silver or something.
Yeah, there you go. Put a gold medal on them.
So I like this fight, though, Whittaker versus Romero. It's a fans type of fight. I think it's a good matchup. And then you're saying the winner of this is pretty much promised Bisping.
Well, they have to be at that point because they'll be the interim champion. I think the only advantage to having that interim title around your waist is the UFC can't really last minute come in and say, hey, we're deciding to give Bisping someone else, because at that point you have two champions in the same division.
Yes. It's in that sense it's guaranteed. And that is a good point. You never think about that. The interim belt is pretty much a golden ticket for the title shot and for the official unified title shot.
It just gives you practice swearing it around.
And look, the winner of that, whether anyone likes Michael Bisping or thinks he's a deserved champion, he makes money, he sells tickets. And the winner of that fighting, whether it's November in MSG or December at the end of the year cards, whether it's Whittaker or Romero versus Bisping to unify the titles, that'll be a good fight on headlining a pay-per-view.
And now you're saying Bisping versus GSP then is evaporated.
Yeah, Dana said now when GSP comes back, it looks like he's going to fight for the 170-pound title rather than move up and fight Bisping and wait for Bisping's knee to heal. So Tyron Woodley may have just cashed in his lottery ticket there, because the thought of fighting Damian Maia, nothing personal against Damian Maia, but fighting a guy who might be the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner to ever step in the UFC but doesn't sell a ton of tickets, against the guy moving up in weight who does sell a ton of tickets, I'm sure that Tyron Woodley would probably rather face GSP.
Yeah, especially GSP has been away from the game for as long as he has.
Yeah.
And it's Garbrandt Dillashaw's off, huh?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, and you have to give it to TJ Dillashaw, he's right away came out and said, look, I will move down to 125 and fight Demetrius Johnson. And it was Demetrius Johnson who took to Twitter and say, hey, you have to earn that title shot, TJ. If you want to fight flyweight, come down here and get a win first at flyweight before you fight it.
Whoa.
Calling for Ray Borg. Demetrius Johnson actually on Twitter calling for Ray Borg over TJ Dillashaw. I'm like, how does he have to earn it? He's the former bantamweight champion of the world, and he's beaten some of the best there's ever been. I think TJ Dillashaw at this point's earned the shot. Dana White seems to like the fight. I don't know if TJ can make 125
Seems
or
like
not.
Mighty Mouse doesn't like the shot.
That's right. And interestingly enough, look, Mighty Mouse has been the one forever saying, hey, I know no one's tuning into my fights. I want a big mega fight. Here's your chance. And now you're not so keen on it.
Well, he really wants to set that record. And against TJ Dillashaw, that, he might not break Anderson.
Or maybe they'll take him more
That's
serious.
right.
They'll take him more serious, like he faced a known champion.
I mean, yeah, on paper it's better for his legacy, but if he wants to break Anderson's record, that's a tough guy to do it against.
Yeah.
And look, he struggled against those 135-pounders before his loss to Dominic Cruz, and
Yeah, those tall, long
yeah.
guys that have really good wrestling. That's probably the style to beat Mighty Mouse. But at 125, you haven't seen anyone with that much of a size difference against Mighty Mouse. And the fact that TJ says, yeah, I could get down to 125 no problem, that kind of surprises me. He's a big guy at 35.
Yeah, he is. He is a big guy at 35.
Yeah, I don't see how he's going to make. That's
I know. That's 10 pounds, and when you're
10
that
pounds?
little, that's a lot of weight.
well, you'll see him sucked in.
Well, some of it could also be economics too. The simple fact that you had for TJ Dillashaw, whether I think despite the fact that he beat Renan Barao twice and he fought Dominic Cruz, I think that TJ Dillashaw versus Demetrius Johnson would still be the biggest fight of TJ's career, and I think TJ versus Garbrandt was going to be headlining the International Fight Week here. I mean, he just lost the biggest fight of his career, so kudos to him for trying to put together the new biggest fight of my career fight.
True. And if you're TJ, who would you rather fight, Garbrandt or Mighty Mouse?
Probably Mighty Mouse.
Doesn't
really
hit as
Yeah,
hard.
That's right. I mean, look what Garbrandt did to Dominic Cruz.
Yeah. And TJ, that was a close fight with Dominic.
Yeah.
So. In other news, what's up with Conor versus Floyd?
I don't know what to make of that fight anymore. We had a boxing guy, Kenny Adams, on last week, who trains a lot of fighters, so he's really in tune with the boxing scene. And he told Nick and I that he actually didn't think it was happening. And I don't even know what to think. There's so much white noise around the negotiations with this. At this point, I'm not even really sure what to make of it anymore.
See, a long time ago when everyone and their mother started asking me about this fight, I said, you know what? I'm not going to waste my breath on it because it's not going to happen. And everyone started telling me, no, it is going to happen. And now we're back to square one where it's probably not going to happen. So
Yeah, I'm not really interested in that fight. I mean, it's an MMA guy versus a boxing guy. Boxing guy gets to keep the rules. The MMA guy loses his tools.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make
it's a
sense.
good little rhyme.
I don't even know what I just said.
Grandmaster Nick.
I got a million of them. They just come. And then I forget.
Oh,
I can't patent them.
all right, on to UFC Fight Night 109. Wow, Baroni, we're getting old. Fight Night 1. So, what does Matt always say? Never bury the lead?
Yeah, never bury the lead. I mean, look, the main event here is by far the best fight. It's the headliner, and the winner, I have to imagine, is all but guaranteed a title shot, regardless of who wins in the John Jones versus Daniel Cormier fight.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Gustafsson, come on, look, he's taken both champions to really close decisions. Fights, in my opinion, could have easily went his way. It just came down to one judge's opinion. He took both Cormier and John Jones down. His wrestling is second to none. And to me, he's the number one contender. I mean, to me, it's like Cormier and Jones are both the real champions, and Gustafsson's the number one guy. But you like Glover in this fight.
So right when the odds came out a couple weeks ago, I went ahead and I bet Glover because after the Rumble Johnson fight, Gustafsson was out for a long time. And just like Glover Teixeira, he got crunched by Rumble Johnson, and he didn't seem that interested in fighting. I remember they tried to make this fight before with Glover. They tried to make a couple fights for him. He just didn't seem that interested. Finally, and then he was hurt for a while. Finally, he came back. He took a fight with Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz, who's probably going to get cut because he's just been getting throttled by everybody in the UFC. And Gustafsson, look, he beat him easily, but he didn't look that interested. And I said, look, if this guy's not focused, the one thing you're getting from Glover Teixeira is a professional performance from a career-long professional prize fighter. And then I saw the interview after I bet him where Gustafsson said, I understand this is the biggest fight of my career. I have to win this fight if my career is going to move forward. I'm never going to get a title shot if I don't win. The only thing I care about is winning. And he really looked focused. And
so now you question your bet
yeah.
a little.
So I'm not betting him anymore, but I do have a bet on Glover.
I see. So the reasons you picked Glover were kind of psychological at the time.
And I love
so
the
than
fact,
physical.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Glover's been active. You know, a lot of people thought he was done, so they tried to feed him to Jared Cannonier. They thought he was going to be the next prospect. Glover took care of him, no problem. And, you know, when you go in there and underestimate Glover Teixeira, he'll put you to sleep. I mean, we saw it with Ryan Bader, where the UFC thought, well, you know, we can get Ryan Bader a huge win, and Teixeira knocked him out. And, you know, Teixeira has a lot of skills, but...
Yeah, he packs a big punch.
Yeah.
Got a great left hook. But Gustafsson, great right out uppercut. And what do you counter that uppercut with?
Yeah.
The left hook.
The left hook.
Yeah, I personally like Gustafsson in this fight. Right now, he's a favorite, about a 3-1 favorite in this fight. So there's some value in betting Glover. I mean, I pick Gustafsson, but at 3-1, there is some value in Glover.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to go with the Swede.
The Swede.
Yeah, you know, I'm Swedish, so I got to go with the Swede.
That's right. Yes, you are.
I don't know if I'm going to put any. I don't know if I'm going to put any money on it. But.
I mean, it's a big price to pay, and you and I talked about this last week, so maybe this is a good point to bring up. Is there extra pressure on Alexander Gustafsson fighting in front of his home crowd? And it's not like fighting in Vegas where you know there's fights all the time and you're going to get plenty of chances to fight in front of your home crowd. He doesn't get a lot of chances to fight in front of a home crowd in Sweden. Is there extra pressure on him now?
Yeah.
But he's shown he does really good under pressure. I don't think there's any more pressure fighting at home than there is in fighting for the title, and he performed great in those two title fights. So I think he's a guy that really responds to pressure well, and he's got a chance to prove it come Sunday morning. I'm always used to saying come Saturday night.
You've done that before, fight in the morning, right? When you went
to in Australia, fight in the morning. It was kind of cool just because you get it out of the way, and then you got the whole day to enjoy, instead of by the time everything's done, the press conference, the night is pretty much over. The night will be young when they finish fighting. So,
the night will be young here. They're actually fighting at night, right? Which is why we're watching it in the morning with the time difference. We're watching it at 7 a.m. because they're fighting at night, and there's like a 12-hour time difference.
Oh, that's true. We're watching in the morning, so they'll be fighting at night. You got me. I'm thinking Australia, we fought in the morning, so us in America could watch it at night, and the night was young. So, the night will be old for them in Sweden. And I'm sure it's not like Vegas where things are open.
That sounded like another new saying.
What I said?
Yeah.
I didn't even catch it.
See?
The night will be old. Moving on down the card.
The old saying, the night is young and so are we, but you said the night is old and so are we.
Next up on the card, Volkan Uzmadar versus Misha Serkunov. And Serkunov, a big minus 400 favorite in this fight. And, man, I think there's some value in betting Uzmadar. I kind of like his stand-up better in this fight. He's got really good stand-up in this fight. You saw when he fought OSP. He won a split decision. OSP won that third round. Okay, so that decision could have went to OSP, but I liked what he showed. That was his first UFC fight, and he showed a lot of heart and toughness and skill, stand-up skill. He has really hard kicks. He's trained in Holland for a long time as well. And Misha Serkunov, I give him the advantage on the ground, but I think if this fight stays on his feet, that he might be in trouble.
And especially at that price. If it was a pick'em, obviously we'd all take Alexander Gustafsson, but at almost 3-1, I felt like I had to take a shot with Glover Teixeira. But in this fight, you could make the same case that ever since he started training with Henry Hooft, that all of a sudden Uzdemir's striking has improved a lot. And who else have we seen that was kind of a 50-50, start training with Henry Hooft and become a dynamic striker? Anthony Rumble Johnson.
That's right. Yeah, but those heavy hands are something you're born with. But I totally agree with your point. She's a plus a 3-1 dog. I definitely think there's value in this.
There's definitely value in this at 320. I mean.
Yeah, plus 320. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
right? Will you be adding that one to your parlay, Nick?
I do think the UFC.
What? This is value. If anything,
Yeah.
I mean, this in a parlay will make it a
I was
Yeah.
hoping there was, I'm been starting to lean towards this round stuff, and there's only one roundup here, the Glover and Alexander over
I
2.5,
should've put those up.
so the other ones I don't see it there, so you're throwing me off here.
We actually took some bets on that. That was a fight where with two big guys like that can punch, we thought maybe we'd get under action. But we actually took a lot of over bets on the main event.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Under?
Over.
Yeah, you're thinking it'll go over 2.5.
Yeah.
5-round fight, maybe they start off a little more cautious than normal.
Alexander is so tough, he can take a punch.
Yeah, and he's they both have good gas tanks, good cardio, and they probably will both be a little
And
patient
I would think
in the
that
first round.
Volkan's fight would go over as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't love his chances as much to go over. Look, I'm not going to bet Ozdemir, and I can understand the reasons why. Like you said, the Henry Hooft and his striking's have gotten a little better.
Yeah,
But
what don't you like about him?
I feel like when it goes to the ground, it's really one-sided here. And I think that on the feet, you could say that Ozdemir is equal or maybe slightly better than Sirkunov. If you watch Sirkunov's fight with Nikita Krylov, who's a great striker and submission guy, Sirkunov was actually the better fighter standing up in that fight. His stand-up has improved quite a bit too. So let's say that maybe they're not quite equal. Maybe it's Ozdemir slightly ahead, but once it goes to the ground, it's a real mismatch
Do you
here.
think Volkan's wrestling's good enough to keep it on the feet?
I don't know. Look, we've only seen him fight one time, and it was against OSP, who doesn't really go for a lot of
Never.
takedowns. Yeah.
Never.
So I don't know that
Just
we
right
know.
in your face kind of guy.
Yeah.
But there's some value at, plus 320 dog. There is some value in betting Esmadar, especially if you're going to throw him into a parlay that could pay off like 15 times your risk.
Sure.
I think it's a good guy, a good fight to throw in the parlay, more so than most guys who are 3-1 underdogs. Moving on down the line, Peter Sabata versus Ben Saunders. Gosh, this fight's pretty much a pick'em, and I like Ben Saunders in this fight. Why are so many people betting Peter Sabata, and are you going to take the Killer Bee?
So I opened this fight minus 200 when I put the odds up, and nowhere else in the world had odds up at the time. We opened them early last Monday. And we immediately started taking Sabata action, and I was actually really surprised. And then a lot of other people came out at like minus 120, minus 125 Saunders, and we still kept taking Sabata action. And so I went back and looked at this fight a few times, like, what am I missing? How could I have been that far off on the odds? I must have made a mistake. And I went back through the fight several times, and I just don't see it. Peter Sabata's, greatest attributes are his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and his submission game. But Ben Saunders is one of the best submission guys, period. And even off his back, he's amazing. I mean, he pulls off submissions that no one else does in the UFC. I cannot see Peter Sabata beating Ben Saunders. And if you look at Saunders' last fight where he fought Court McGee, the former tough winner who almost got a lightweight title shot, Ben Saunders dominated him long. His striking's improved. I mean, ever since Ben Saunders came back to the UFC, he's 4-1 with his only loss to Patrick Cote. I mean, and Kyle Noak beat Peter Sabata. Nothing against Kyle Noak.
I was thinking the same thing.
So I really like Ben Saunders here.
Yeah, I like Ben Saunders because he ruined my parlay a few weeks ago. So I'm going with him this time.
I think there's some value if you're getting him at even money. Yeah, he's dangerous, long. I mean, he throws. That's all he does is just launch at straight left hand and throws left kick in his left knee. But it's a handful, and he's throwing that kick and knee so much he's vulnerable to a takedown. But when you take him down, he's got an awesome guard, and then you're fighting out of that spider web, and he's throwing up triangles so well. So yeah, I think there's some value in Ben Saunders at even money, and that's why I'm picking him in this fight. I mean, I would have picked him anyway. I probably, if he was 2 or 3-1, I wouldn't throw money on him. But at this price, I think I will.
Yeah, I like this price. I'm going to go with Ben Saunders on this one.
I think I might do a little parlay this time, Nick.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I talked you into it.
Next up, Omari Akhmedov versus Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Everyone loves Al Hassan, huh, Matt?
Yeah, we opened this run around 180. We're up to minus 260 on Al Hassan, and he has one of those really interesting stat lines. 7-0 with 7 knockouts, never been more than 1:34 seconds in a fight in his life. In his UFC debut, 34-second knockout win.
And that's not to be confused with the other Razak
that Steve Cantwell broke.
Steve Cantwell broke the arm of.
That's right.
So don't get confused.
And what do you know about Omari Akhmedov? I don't know too much about him, but right now he's a 2-1 dog.
Look, and he's fought a lot in the UFC. He's 4-3 in the UFC, but losses to Sergio Moraes, Gunnar Nelson, some real guys who can really fight. He beat Kyle Noak, which you have to like. And so, look, he has some real wins. Losing to Gunnar Nelson, there's no shame in that. He's a super tough guy, one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in all the UFC. We're going to see. The one downfall, I think, to Akhmedov and maybe what the UFC is trying to do here is all 4 of his losses he got finished. And he's been knocked out a couple times.
And he's fighting a finishing machine.
That's right.
But he's been the distance a couple times, so you got to think he has a better gas tank. A guy who's never, even come close to making it out the first round. That's kind of the only... what do I call that? It factor, that would question mark.
What kind of shows was he fighting in?
What kind of gas tank does he have? Yeah, what kind of shows Al Hassan fought in?
Depends on what shows he was fighting in.
They weren't great. In his UFC debut, what was the kid's name?
And his opponents.
Yeah, his UFC debut wasn't against anyone of real prominence. He hasn't fought anybody yet. And I compare this fight to Mike Perry syndrome. Mike Perry was 9-0, 9 KOs, and ran his mouth and knocked everyone out, and and then as soon as he got in there with Alan Joe Bain and he didn't get the knockout, he didn't look like he had a plan B in that fight. He just, what do I do now that I can't knock him out? And we're going to see with Al Hassan. We don't know. But what happens when you don't knock him out in the first 3 minutes?
And what happens if you get sucked into a little deep water and you haven't been there before?
Same thing that they did to Brandon Thatch. Come in there undefeated, throw him in with a named guy, and, burn him out of there right away. Now he's out.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a good-looking kid. They could have promoted that guy a little bit if they watched out for him a little bit.
And he's been cut, right?
Yeah, I think so.
See, this fight, I don't really want to touch. There's too many question mark factors in that one. Most notably, what's going to happen when Al Hassan gets hit, when he's dragged into deep water, etc., etc. But the fights I do like, we already talked about. We'll go through my parlay before we close up. Anything else on this card really jumping out at you? I kind of was looking at the Jack Hermanson-Alex Nicholson fight, and I didn't know what the odds were, and I wanted to pick Hermanson. I haven't picked in this fight to win, but now I see he's a minus 160 dog. Is there any value left in that?
I don't know. 2 fights jumped out to me on this card. The first one was Joaquim Silva, minus 170 over Rezi Madadi. And the reason I like this fight is Silva's 9-0. He's coming up. I feel like they moved him along at the right pace. And Rezi Madadi now is 38 years old.
Don't forget, he's retired. He's coming out of retirement.
And he took this fight on short notice, coming out of retirement.
It wasn't like this big plan, I'm coming out of retirement. They need someone to step up that's from Sweden on a Swedish card.
That's right.
And they probably gave him some money to finish retiring.
Yes.
That's right.
So I think there's a lot of advantages here for Joaquim Silva, and at minus 170, I think they're still pricing Reza Madadi as if the guy who upset Michael Johnson. We're not getting that fighter here. Minus 170. I don't always like to lay the wood, but I feel like it's a bargain.
That's a good point. So if you're looking for a guy around minus 150 to lay money on, scratch Jack Hermanson and go with
Joaquim Silva.
Joaquim Silva. That's right.
The other one on this, for people that like to put some of those bigger favorites and use them in parlays, is Marcin Held. Marcin Held is a guy who fought for the title against Will Brooks in Bellator before coming over to the UFC, and he's only 25 years old.
Young.
And I think Dana thought maybe he was getting a steal here, a guy who fought for the title in Bellator, really young, but he came over, lost a bad decision to Diego Sanchez, and then lost a really controversial decision to Joe Lozon. That's right. And they have him matched up here with a guy he is supposed to beat. The UFC wants this guy to get back on track because of his age and what he's already accomplished. And he's fighting a guy named Damir Hadzovic. And this guy is tailor-made for Marcin Held to win. You have to lay minus 330. But if you're just looking for a parlay builder, Marcin Held might be the ticket.
Very interesting.
That's
My eyes
interesting.
were all
That's a
lit
good
up
one to
until
look at.
I heard the minus 330. Okay, not as good. Can't slip one past Matt. So as far as the Sweden card, that's really all I care to talk about on this one. You heard about that. The top fights going up the card. I love Gustafsson big. I might add him to the parlay, but at minus 300, it's hard to make all the money off him. You're going to have to bet, $100 to make 30. But the fights I do like are Esmadar at plus 320. I think there's some value in that. Ben Saunders getting him even, Steven. There's some value in that. And what else, Matt? What else do we really like on this one?
I'm doing a $100 parlay, Joaquim Silva and Marcin Held. And for anyone watching the show, listen, we want to try to get people more interactive. If you have a good bet on this card, a good parlay, tweet it out to us. And I told Danielle and Nick that I was going to do this earlier. If you have a good parlay or if you hit a good ticket on this card, tweet it out to me, Stephan, or Nick, and I'll send you some cool shit in the mail. I have tons of swag, autograph stuff, cards. I got an Ariani Celeste auto, and I just got a bunch of swag stuff. So
Phil
anyone
Baroni,
hits a cool parlay,
Phil Baroni cards.
yeah, I just gave a Phil card I found. If you hit a cool parlay, tweet it out to us. We love to see that stuff, and we'll send you something cool.
All right. Well, that's it from me.
Well, I tell you what I like. I like Silva, and I like Ben Saunders, and I'm going to probably have to go with my Swede guy.
With the Swede,
on
Alexander
a parlay.
Gustafsson, right?
It might not
That's
be a
Swede?
big parlay, but it'll be at least a nice one.
A little one.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it for Matthew Holt and Nick Blomgren. I'm Stephan Bonnar saying see you next week on the final round.